but they weren't tears of sadness. I was crying out of excitement and gratitude, and maybe even a little awe. There was nothing particularly special about my fourth day in training camp. I think that's just how long it took for me to absorb everything that had happened over the past couple of weeks. As I reflected in my dorm room chair, I took a quick self-inventory and was amazed to discover how much my perspective had changed since leaving St. Louis. Yes, I wanted to study film. Yes, I wanted to do footwork and throwing drills. Yes, I wanted to study the playbook. Yes, I wanted to be in the huddle. I actually wanted to play football again. Notice that my shocking realization arrived on the fourth day of camp. The first few days were characterized more by feelings that ranged anywhere from somewhat concerned to DEFCON 1. I was excited about the prospect of playing for Andy, or Big Red as most of his players call him, but I knew there were no guarantees. I still had to earn my spot on the roster like everyone else, and trying to learn a new playbook and establish a rhythm with a new set of tight ends, wide receivers, and running backs after barely even touching a football all spring was going to be a tall order. Fortunately, I had a great offensive coordinator in Matt Nagy. I knew Matt from my rookie year with the Eagles, where he was a quality control assistant to Doug Peterson. He welcomed me in from the first day, even letting me use his vehicle during training camp. I could hardly believe it. I hadn't even secured a spot on the roster yet, and here I was driving around town in the OC's vehicle. Isn't it any wonder I wanted to play for these guys? Don't get me wrong, going hard for up to 13 hours a day, 6 days a week for 6 weeks straight is no stroll in the park, and since I arrived at camp late and somewhat unexpectedly, they didn't have the proper equipment on hand for me. As a result, my first few days were spent wearing wide receiver shoulder pads, which sit more heavily on your shoulders, making them pretty uncomfortable to throw in, and different cleats than I was used to. In spite of all this, I was having a blast. In part, I can thank my brother-in-law Evan for that. Evan Moore played 5 seasons in the NFL, 2008 to 2012, with Cleveland, Seattle, and Philadelphia. When I started to hit the wall during training camp, I gave Evan a call so I could unload some of what I was going through. I usually reach out to him for advice when I have a football situation I'm dealing with. What he told me that night changed everything for me. "Nick," he told me, "everyone wants to quit football at training camp." He was joking mostly, but it made me feel better to know I wasn't the only one struggling. It seemed like all the other players thought training camp was the greatest experience of their lives. Meanwhile, I was thinking, man, this is so hard. The grind of training camp was seriously testing my resolve, and I felt so guilty about it, like I didn't fully appreciate the opportunity I'd been given to play in the NFL, or worse, that I didn't deserve to be there. But as soon as Evan assured me that everyone else felt the same way, it was like getting a huge lineman off my back. Being open and honest, especially when it comes to areas of weakness, has always been really important to me. For that exact reason, too often people put up a front, acting like everything is fine, even when it isn't. They hide what's bothering them because they don't want anyone to know they don't have it all together, that they're not perfect. Professional athletes are especially guilty of this. No matter how badly they might be hurt or what's going on behind the scenes in their personal lives, their natural tendency is to act tough and put up a Superman-like facade. It's kind of funny, really. We don't hesitate to go head-to-head with a 300-pound defender, but we're terrified of being perceived as weak. And to most athletes, especially those in the NFL, weakness is perhaps the worst liability. Personally, I couldn't disagree more. Being transparent about what you're thinking and feeling and struggling with is actually the healthier way to live. When we share our faults and weaknesses, not only are we being honest, we also become more relatable and more human to the people around us. It's possible to be part of a team or a family or a group of friends and still be isolated. We hide our faults and weaknesses, and in doing so, we only end up feeling alone.